Good morning, everyone. My name is Quarles-Mowrer, and I would like to welcome you all to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship from Pottstown. This morning, we are all together. My script is just crashed. Lovely benefits of technology. This morning, we come together in a faith community where we get to share our ups and our downs and all of the fun of being together and all of the ways that we support each other when terrible things happen or when just annoying things happen. As UUs, we believe that care and concern are the primary things that make a community. We believe that everyone is inside that circle of love and compassion. I used to say it as no one is outside, but when you even say the word outside, that makes you think, oh, there must have been people outside. But no one is ever outside that circle of love and compassion because we believe that every single human person and every being deserves inherent worth and dignity. We're born with it. We believe that you can have a faith in reason, and that doesn't make a faith in the bigger universe and the things that we don't understand any less vital. So this morning, I'm going to ask for everybody to indulge me as I work with this computer and come up here and get your announcements. So if anyone has an announcement they want to share, so come on up. There must be something. I have a start.
Not this tall. There we go. Good morning, I'm Valerie. I'm not sure if there's anyone here that wasn't here last week, but just in case, I want to repeat my announcement that I'm starting a shawl ministry. A shawl ministry is a knitting and crochet group that knits shawls for people going through challenging or difficult times in their lives. This is an example of a comfort shawl. The idea of a comfort shawl is that, and this is something I forgot to mention last week. The idea of a comfort shawl is that while the knitter or crocheter is making it, you are putting your good intentions, your thoughts, your prayers, your best wishes into the stitches as you make them. And then the recipient has a tangible, item that they can feel the support and the thoughts of their congregation. I'm hoping to meet once a month, and come find me to setting up after service if you would like to join us. Oh, also I can teach knitting and crochet. So if you want to learn with a t-shirt. Yep.
There's a card going around, get well card for Alan Pillay. It's over there now, but if anybody wants to sign it, it'll be floating around at potluck afterwards. Alan and Linda, for those of you that don't know, are longtime members. The newer people might not have seen them quite so often because they're having health difficulties, so getting in has been an issue. But Alan just had surgery last week to release some pain, and it seems to have been successful, at least so far, and so we're having a demo card.
Good morning, my name is Miranda, and I'd like to let you know that because we have lots of visitors lately and people showing interest in who UUs do and what UUs are, we're going to offer a UU 101, sort of a surprise one, next week after the Sunday service, after coffee hour, grab your coffee and your goodies. For anyone that's interested just in UUism and also interested in becoming a member. We're also planning a new member recognition Sunday sometime before the end of the spring, and that would be during a service. So we have lots of new members and people who are expressing interest in becoming members. So, and as well, even if you don't want to become a member, it's fun to find out about the history of UUism, and that's essentially what it is. So join us if you want next week, and we'll be talking to some people that we think might be interested anyway. But 101 history of UUism. Thanks.
All right, well, that was perfect timing because my computer just came back up.
I did it on purpose.
We light our chalice this morning with words from Sean Trapp. Do I have a volunteer to light this one? It's extra difficult to light this morning because we ran out of those tapers and I bought some and then I left them at home. So we light our chalice this morning with words from Sean Trapp. Our chalice reminds us that the fire within ourselves is the same fire that illuminates the universe. It's our reminder that all is connected, even through the space of the void, even though the space of the void is vast. And our experience here is just a blip in the cosmic timeline. The flame is our promise that in our smallness and our short time on earth, that we live intently and deeply with love for one another, with honesty and integrity, to be guided by rational thought and critical thinking, and with a sense of shared responsibility. For, as the late astronomer Carl Sagan reminded us, this pale blue dot that looks so green and vivid from where we are, but from space it's just a little tiny blue dot, the only home that we will ever know. So now is the time for chimes, and that same technology that crashes my computer or brings us all closer together or makes us friends with other people on Facebook, even though we haven't seen them in a long, long time. Well, it also can distract us from the place where we are here and now. So now is the time in the service where I ask everyone to remember to put your phone into worship mode and silence it. I actually did remember to do that, so that's all good. So we'll disconnect for this sacred time. And now, take a deep breath. And as you exhale, feel the weight of your body in the chair. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the blood rushing through your hands. Listen to the small, small noises that mean that you're in a room full of people. The breaths, the shifts of weight. All of that means that we are here together today. All right, so for an opening this morning, instead of opening words, I have an opening story, and it's by Barry Kowalski. It's called What the Turtle Taught Theodore. So in his autobiography, Theodore Parker relates that as a child, about 4 or 5 years old, he was living on a farm in Roxbury and walking through the fields one day, absentmindedly swinging a stick through the tall grass. So Theodore Parker, he lived a long time ago. He lived the days before the Civil War. And it was summertime. And he stopped to watch the water bubble along a creek. And he noticed that in the middle of the creek, there was a turtle that was sunning itself on the rock. Now he'd seen some other boys who also carried sticks around, because that was something, that was like a toy that you got to play with back then. The sticks were actually toys. And he'd seen other boys use their sticks to strike out at turtles or other animals. I guess it was part of what children thought was fun, just like some kids still like to bully and hit those who are weaker than themselves. Well, often children, and grown-ups too, are copycats, and they mimic the behavior of people who are bigger than them or cooler than them. And young Theodore wanted to be like the other older boys. So he raised his stick into the air, thinking he was just gonna whack that turtle right into the water. And something stopped him. Something seemed wrong about that situation. And he looked again at that turtle. It was quiet and it was peaceful and it was enjoying the sunlight, just like he was enjoying a sunny day. The turtle ever done him any harm? Was the turtle so different from himself? So he lowered that stick and he just walked home, running it through the grass and thinking about what had happened. And when he arrived home, His mother was there to greet him, and he told her about the incident. And she listened very carefully to Theodore and said, well, she listened especially carefully when he related how there was a strange force inside him that stopped him from hitting that little animal. Theodore, she said, that force inside you was the voice of conscience. Always pay attention to it. Follow what your conscience tells you. It's your moral compass that points you in the right direction. And if you honor your conscience, you'll never go wrong. Well, Theodore Parker grew up to be a Unitarian minister. In fact, one of the greatest faith leaders for our faith. He became a champion of the defenseless who needed defending. He was a hero in the fight to end slavery in our country. And he prayed, this is in the 1800s, he prayed to Father and Mother God. He fought for women's equality and the right to vote. He and his wife never had children of their own, but he felt a kinship with the whole family of creation. All the people, all the sexes, all the races, he felt that everyone had been made in the image of the Holy. And all that started in the summer day when he was a child who saw a turtle and decided to do what was right. And now let's join in singing hymn number 124, Be That God. And now it's time for another story, this one with pictures. So whether you're young in body or spirit, you're welcome to join us at the front of the picture.
Today's story is called The Scapegoat. Once there was a goat who lived in a pen on a farm. He played hide and seek with the chickens on the other side of the fence. He ran in circles until he got dizzy and watched the clouds spin overhead. He slept in a soft bed of hay, which made a great snack if you got hungry late at night. Good morning, goat. It was a perfectly nice life, but he was curious about the greater world, so he decided to escape. The goat went to see the horses and the cows. He ate cabbage in the garden. He scratched an itch on the pig's back because the pig couldn't reach it himself. Miss Farmer was looking at the trampled petunias in her flower bed when she noticed the goat was missing. The goats escaped, she called. Mr. Farmer, Uncle Nathan, and the 3 little farmer children came running. Mr. Farmer found the goat, led him back to the pen with a carrot, and shut the gate.
Mrs. Farmer said the goat had ruined her petunias. In fact, Andrew and Archer Farmer had been playing catch right over the flower bed. But the boys let the goat take the blame. The next day, the goat went swimming with the ducks in the pond, napped in the sun, and ate 4 potatoes before Uncle Nathan noticed he was gone. The goats escaped, Uncle Nathan called. When they found him, Andrew said the goat had eaten his homework, even though he'd been looking for frogs all afternoon and hadn't done it. Mr. Farmer raised the fence, but not high enough. Every day the goat escaped, and every day Mr. Farmer brought him back. The goat didn't mind going back to his pen, and Mr. Farmer didn't mind making the fence higher. What Mr. Farmer did mind was all the mischief the goat caused when he was loose. The goat kicked over a bucket of paint that Mrs. Farmer was using to paint the barn. The goat ate all the cupcakes they had made, especially for Archer's birthday party. And the goat stuck a wad of chewing gum to Mr. Farmer's chair. Wait just a minute, Mr. Farmer said. Goats don't chew gum. A scapegoat does, Andrew said. Excuse me, called Nicolette, but no one stopped to listen to her. So they built his fence higher. When finally the fence was too high to jump over, the goat lay down in the dirt, out of breath. That's when he realized it would be easy to scoot under the fence. From there, he rolled down the grassy hill into the meadow. Then he ran back to the top and rolled down again and again. It was an incredible day. Back at home, Uncle Nathan was making a pie and forgot to set the timer on the oven. He burned the pie. It was so awful that he had to feed it to the pigs. Uncle Nathan felt bad that there wasn't pie for supper, so he said the scapegoat had eaten it. Mr. Farmer shook his head. We're just going to have to keep the goat tied up all day. He can't keep running around and making a mess of everything. Mr. Farmer loved the goat, but he also loved pie and peace and quiet. Excuse me, shouted Nicolette. You're punishing the goat for things he didn't do. But he ate the pie, said Uncle Nathan, and spilled the paint, said Mrs. Farmer, and put gum on the chair, said Andrew, and ate the cupcakes, said Archer. Mr. Farmer patted his daughter on the head. It was nice that she was sticking up for the goat, but the facts were the facts. That was when Archer and Andrew started to wrestle over a ball, and Andrew accidentally stepped on Archer's toe, and Archer screamed. The goat stepped on Andrew's foot, or Archer's foot, Andrew yelled. See, said Nicolette, the goat didn't do anything. The goat was outside with a mouthful of alfalfa. I burned the pie, admitted Uncle Nathan. I left gum on the chair, confessed Andrew. I spilled the paint, said Mrs. Farmer. I ate all the cupcakes, said Archer. They were really good. Everyone could agree those things weren't the goat's fault. That night, when Mr. Farmer tucked the goat into his bed of hay, he didn't shut the gate behind him, because in the end, the goat always came home. So instead of going to the classroom, if all of the kids want to meet out in the lobby area, I mean, thank you. Well, it wasn't actually my computer this morning, it was the goat.
This is the time in our service where we pause for the morning offering. The CEO of the company I work for says that religious institutions are wonderful at development work because they make giving, they make philanthropy a habit. Charles Duhigg, the author of The Power of Habit, says, there's something really powerful about groups and shared experiences. People might be skeptical about their abilities if they're by themselves, but a group will convince them to suspend disbelief. A community creates belief. So when we hear the word habit, we sometimes think we have a negative reaction. But just because something is a habit doesn't mean it's bad. This church was built by our community's habit of coming together and our collective belief in one another. So let's continue to believe this morning. Thank you so much for the morning offering and giving in a spirit of generosity and received with gratitude and love. This morning's reading is by Robin Tanner. Robin Tanner is a UU minister, a poet, and an activist who serves as the Minister of Worship and Outreach at Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation in New Jersey. So she writes, confessing communities. It's braver, wiser, so it starts with a quote. Why is it that it is often easier for us to confess our sins to God than to a sibling? God is holy, but a sibling knows from experience. Who can give us certainty that in the confession and forgiveness of our sins, we're not dealing with ourselves, but with the living God? Our sibling breaks the circle of self-deception. A human who confesses in the presence of their sibling experiences the presence of God and the reality of the other person. That's from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So she starts with, where's the booth? Having been raised by a Christian on the periphery, New Age mom and a Buddhist-leaning dad, I was a little perplexed at my first confession. I was 8 years old, attending a Catholic school. That's a whole different story, but let's stay with the confessional booth for now. It was a room, sunlight pouring in through a window with 2 softly padded chairs. I sat down, beginning with the words we memorized, funny the things that stick. Forgive me, Father, the priest smiled and interrupted me. What have you done that you wish you hadn't done? Well, that wasn't in the script. We sat together in silence for a while. Then it began like a few drops when you're not certain it'll rain, but suddenly the clouds open. I shared mistakes, some intentional, some unintentional, and I nervously waited for the penance. How many Hail Marys? Instead, he asked in a kind tone, what could you do to make it better? Now I've learned since then that this is not everyone's experience of confession. But it's why I became an early advocate for confession. You see, I also grew up with a granny who reviewed her day every evening. If she found she caused pain, she would call the person to apologize. Even as a young child, I got a few phone calls. Confessing church was a movement begun among German Protestants during the Nazi regime. After the government attempted to unite all German Christian churches into one pro-Nazi church, the confessing church resisted the takeover. Among their founders was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. The confessing church was not entirely successful, in part because many of its members were not all in. But I long for progressive religious communities that are confessing communities, places where we admit our wrongdoings, are held accountable, and called back into covenant More and more, I dream about a community where a liberating love insists on justice and power redistribution, on right relationship, on a community where truth flows freely amongst her people. I know it's possible. I once lived in its grace and challenge. I believe it can be again, but we're gonna have to be all in. And she closes with a prayer. She says, "Beloved, may I know the beauty that can be full confession unfiltered, one that shatters the shame, where I share my sin openly with all my siblings. Grant a love that heals those that I harm, free my heart of hatred denial. Call my being to openness, covenant, and accountability. Help me to be a faithful member of a confessing congregation." And now we will join together in singing hymn 293, O Star of Truth. Okay, no lessons from My Little Pony. We're up to honesty. We're like halfway through. So if you've been with us for any third Sunday in the past few months, you'll already be familiar with this information, this next information I'm going to give you. So please feel free to tune out and mentally compose your grocery list or get an extra cup of coffee from the social hall. I'll let you know when the synopsis is over. So My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, is an animated television series that ran for about 9 seasons, starting in 2010. The series was originally intended as a vehicle for Hasbro to market their Generation 4 My Little Pony toys. Hasbro hired animator Lauren Faust to head the show. Now, Faust had spent her entire career striving to make animated shows that are smart and complex and treat kids, especially girls, as actual humans who are able to appreciate good storytelling. I mean, what a amazing concept. So Faust's style direction for the show included the following. The cast should be pseudo-adult individuals living independent lives. The problems they face should be understandable, but also not shallow. The cast should all be distinct individuals, each with depths which would be explored with time. And no one should be the butt of all the jokes, but everyone should have some faults. The world would be a firmly fantasy world that allows ponies to interact with their environment, rejecting easy real-world implications. And above all, the writing should not treat the audience as willing to ignore writing foibles or being unable to ask questions, because little kids are not stupid. I recently ran across a Reddit thread that asked why Lauren Faust is given so much credit for My Little Pony. She left after season 2, which means the show ran for 7 more years without her. They argue that the writers Jason Thiessen, Megan McCarthy, and Jim Miller should be given a lot more credit, especially because the best seasons of the show were arguably seasons 4 through 6, which were written well after she left the show. Now, this is per Reddit, so don't shoot the messenger or try to argue which season is the best. I'm not here to debate the best seasons of My Little Pony or argue that veteran writers were able to take the notes that Hasbro insisted upon and make them into good television were anything but excellent. But Dark Shadow 25 said it well, my opinion, well with this answer. He said, Lori Faust built the foundation of the show that made it so good. I mean, asking that question is like asking why the architect is getting credit for the building being so sturdy when there were dozens or hundreds of other people who actually constructed it. Okay, all of you who decided to tune out, the recap's over. Today, we are focusing on Applejack. Now, as far as appearance goes, Applejack actually looks a lot like the G1 pony of the same name. She's actually one of the very few ponies for which Hasbro retained their trademark. So both Applejack, the old one, and Applejack, the new one, are light orange and they have freckles and they have a blonde mane and tail and an apple seed cutie mark. G1 ponies were a lot bigger than the new ponies, so she has 7 apples as her cutie mark. They didn't even call them cutie marks in Generation 1, actually. So she has 7 apples, and the new Applejack only has 3. She's only got room for 3 on her little bottom. In the show, Applejack is voiced by Ashley Ball, who also voices Rainbow Dash. But unlike Rainbow Dash, Applejack speaks with a noticeable regional accent. And I admit that I had thought her accent was just generally country, and I'm not going to make you all listen to my Applejack impression, but it's really tempting because she's like, it's so, once you start hearing it, it's so country. And I really thought that it was, just generally country, like that kind of exaggerated, generally British that American people do because we can't hear the difference in British accents. But apparently, the My Little Pony fandom on Applejack, the wiki, says that it's a regional accent found in southwestern Missouri and the Oklahoma Ozarks, which is maybe not so coincidentally also apple orchard country. And Applejack doesn't just speak differently from the other main 6 ponies. She's also the only one of her friend group to live in a multi-generational household. In fact, she's the only one of her friend group who does not live alone. Well, unless you count Twilight and Spike, but she's the only one who lives with other ponies. Applejack runs the family farm with the help of her brother Big Macintosh, her grandmother Granny Smith, and her younger sister Apple Bloom. It is strongly implied that she's the main caregiver for her younger sister Apple Bloom, and that their parents have passed away. But that was never spelled out because, as Faust said in an interview on deviantart.com, it would have been deemed likely too sad for a kids show, and Faust didn't think Hasbro would allow it. From the Applejack wiki, there's a quote from the storyboard artist, Sabrina Alberghetti, who says, at the end of the Apple Family Reunion episode, the shot fades to a view of Sweet Valley Acres and 2 shooting stars fly through the sky, and the shooting stars are meant to represent Applejack's parents. But again, there was like one thing where they're thinking, oh, well, maybe they're just traveling sales ponies, or they never spelled it out, so we can all think what we want, but I know it should be. Hasbro.com describes Applejack this way. Every pony needs, oh my gosh, I almost did it. I almost started. Every pony needs a friend like Applejack. Friendly and honest to the core. She always tells it how it is and is there to offer a helping hoof. You know, Applejack's helpful nature is made apparent in like one of her very first ones where she's the star. It's called Applebuck season. And we see that Applejack is much more accustomed to helping others than accepting help. So apple bucking, in case you're not aware, is the way that ponies harvest apples from apple trees. So a pony will double barrel kick the apple tree and knocks all the apples down out of the tree. Now, although Applejack and Big Mac run the farm together, Applejack is handling this apple bucking harvest all by herself because Big Mac got injured. And Applejack is portrayed as being freakishly strong, like Monica from Friends, freakishly strong. And she can harvest a whole tree with just one kick. There are later episodes where she's visiting some relatives who are coincidentally out in the Ozarks. Well, I don't know what they call them, but they have like some pony themed name that's the Ozarks. And they have, like, her relatives all have teams of ponies who harvest together. But she and Big Mac can take care of this giant farm with like acres and acres of trees just all by themselves. But throughout the episode, Applejack is interrupted in her harvest to help others. Every time there's something happening, then, oh, well, Applejack, can you help with this? And she's like, I got an apple buck, but no, I'll help you with this. And like, she stops to help and goes right back to the apple bucking, and everyone always says, oh, well, you just help me with this, can I help you with the apple bucking? She's like, no, I got it. And eventually she goes, and there's a stampede that's heading towards Ponyville. The cows are gonna like run over Ponyville and knock everything down. And she and her dog Winona, they corral all of the cows and, you know, get them to stop stampeding. And I was like, why are the cows stampeding? And like, why are the cows not sentient, just like the horses are? And then one of the cows like apologizes for it. But so she saves the town, and she gets a trophy for saving the town, and she's like, great God, Applebuck. She's like falling over, and she goes and she looks at the trees, and the trees are like blurry because she's been applebucking for so long, and she collapses, and finally she realizes that being there for others is not a one-way street. Now, I had a friend once who said that refusing help that's freely offered is stepping on someone's blessings. We all need to feel needed, and everyone can do something to help others. So throughout the series, you know that Applejack learns from her mistakes. She eventually accepts help. And then the next time that she's going to need help in a big way, there's an almost impossible task in front of her where she's racing against a mechanized cider press to make her cider a la John Henry. She accepts the help of her friends right away when they offer, instead of saying, no, I got this. She accepts her friends as honorary members of the Apple clan. Now, Applejack is another reason that we love Applejack, is that she has the emotional maturity to admit when she does something wrong. And I feel like this might be because she's like a parental figure, because she's constantly having to be a good example for Sweetie Belle, and she does a good job at it. But an example of her admitting that she's wrong is season 4 episode Bats. This has one of the catchiest tunes. Yeah, I won't sing it. But it's apple bucking day again, and Applejack is really excited to get started, and she goes to like buck her first tree, and all the apples that fall out are like flat and soggy and all yucky. And she discovers that the orchard is infested with vampire fruit bats. Well, the main 6, they gather to decide what they're going to do about this problem, and Applejack is convinced these bats have to be evicted. And Fluttershy tries to say, no, they have an important ecological niche. You can't just get rid of them. Okay, everybody. Because she's Fluttershy and she does stuff like that. Okay, everybody. So they go and they try to evict the bats, and the plan backfires. And at the end of the episode, instead of just, brushing it off, she actually goes to Fluttershy and she says, I'm sorry I didn't listen. You were right and I was wrong. And, another time she shows the maturity to apologize is at the Canterlot wedding, when Twilight Sparkle sees that there's something wrong with the wedding and there's something wrong with the bride, and everyone is brushing it off as, oh, you're just jealous that your brother is getting married before you. And she apologizes to Applejack when they realize that no, actually the bride had been replaced by a doppelganger and was not actually. Oh, you were right, we were wrong. Okay, so she seems like a really good pony, but why should I be linking her with our fifth principle? And as a reminder, our fifth principle is the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. Okay, so as far as I know, there's not much in the way of politics in the ponyverse. I mean, Ponyville does elect a mayor. Her name is Mayor. Yeah, but Equestria as a whole appears to be a monarchy, not even a constitutional monarchy, just a monarchy ruled by Princess Celestia, who incidentally has ruled for over 1,000 years. And, you know, I might suggest that after 1,000 years, they would need some regime change, but since Princess Celestia also is responsible for raising the sun in the morning, yeah, I don't know that deposing her in favor of a democratic system would be a great idea. I mean, just imagine if we had to wait on Congress to get the sun to rise in the morning. Doesn't say great things for solar energy at that point. Okay, so it's not a democracy. Well, the reason I chose the fifth principle for Applejack is because I'm aligning the right of conscience with honesty. The top quote that appears on Bing when you search for honesty is, "Honesty is telling the truth to ourselves and others, and integrity is living that truth." The quote is not attributed, but that doesn't make it less true. And I feel like Applejack shows us how to live with integrity. So when I talked about Theodore Parker and the turtle, well, those of you in the know might have thought, Rainbow Dash is the one with a turtle. Well, technically, Ted is a tortoise, thank you, Fluttershy. But the point of that story is not the turtle. The point is that we have the choice to listen to that still small voice inside us that is always honest with us, even when we're having a hard time listening to it, and even when we kind of wish it weren't so honest with us. Well, Applejack is good at listening to her conscience. Now, the poet Rumi talked about the 3 gates of speech. He said, in order to speak well, each of the things you say should be able to pass through these 3 gates. The first gate is it true? The second gate is it necessary? And the third gate is it kind? Now, Applejack she's learning because, you know, one of the things that Lauren Faust really wanted to instill in this particular show was that the ponies had to be old enough to be independent, but still young enough to have lessons to learn. And I'm not saying that when you get older, you don't have lessons to learn, because inside I'm still 12, but she really wanted it to be something people could connect with. So Applejack is still learning, is it true, is it necessary, is it kind? And one episode that I really love that shows this really well is the episode A Leap of Faith. So this is an episode where these 2 ponies come to town. Their names are Flim and Flam. Yeah. They're a pair of ponies who are hucksters and are always trying to make a quick buck. And they are marketing this miracle elixir using an actor who pretends to be cured of everything that ails him. Well, Granny Smith had spent the entire first half of the episode just complaining about how much her hip hurt. In fact, one of the reasons that Applejack wanted to make money at the Grand Galloping Gala was because Granny Smith needs a new hip. So Granny Smith was really complaining that her hip hurts and she can't go swimming with them anymore because her hip hurts, and she can't go apple bucking anymore because her hip hurts, and she can't do this. And so after taking this elixir, Granny Smith starts to feel better. And she starts to do some of the things that she didn't do before. And so then Applejack is left with this conundrum. She knows that this is just the placebo effect. This elixir doesn't do anything. On the other hand, she also knows that her grandmother, who had been kind of turning her back on life a little bit, was happy to get out and start doing stuff again and start trusting her body again because she was taking this elixir. So, you know, Applejack had to go through those 3 gates. Is it true? She knows that this elixir isn't doing what it says it does, but should she say anything? Is it true? Well, It makes it through the first gate. Is it necessary? That's the gate where she gets stuck. Does Granny Smith really need to know that this is messed up? Well, that gate gets broken open for her because Granny Smith decides that she feels so good that she's gonna try to break a dangerous diving record that she decided she was not gonna break when she was just a filly. So Applejack decides that she has to speak out about Flim and Flam's shady marketing practices. And I like this episode because while Applejack does eventually decide to be a whistleblower, she really has to think about, like, is it doing more harm or is it doing less harm when I speak? Of all the main six, Applejack seems to be the most likely to understand that you have to look yourself in the eye after all of your choices. So the tough thing about honesty is that even if what you need to say can pass through all of Lumi's gates, it's true, it's necessary to say. And then the next gate is it kind to say it? Is it kinder to say it or is it kinder to let it be? Well, even if it's kinder to say it, even if it's something that needs to be said, sometimes honest truth is hard to hear. So I read this leadership book that talks about caring personally and challenging directly. And through this series, we can see that Applejack learns to get this right. Applejack learns to make sure that people around her know that she cares, so that she can come out with the truth. She can tell people the truth, and they'll be able to hear it. They will be able to take it in. So, for example, the episode that I talked about last month, where Rarity took her friends for granted and Rarity takes Manhattan. You know, Applejack says, "Oh, that behavior was pretty rotten there, Rarity." She can say that, and Rarity can hear it and take it to heart because she knows that her friends care about her. As UUs, we need to have this same capacity to tell the truth and the same capacity to care. We have to be able to listen to that still small voice inside that's telling us what is right and what is true in a given situation. But we also need to be able to let the people that we are talking to know that if we're saying something that's true, it's because we care about them knowing what's true. And that's one of those things that's really, really hard, especially right now, especially with the way our country, I don't even know if it's really our country. I kind of think it's more like our news media is really divided. But it feels like people will not hear what you say because they think that you're on whatever side of whatever issue. And they think that if you are not with them, then you can't possibly understand them. But if you can show first that you care, and then you can have things pass through those gates of truthfulness, of necessariness, of kindness. And what you say stands a chance. It stands a chance at not just being dismissed out of hand as, oh, you know, those wacky liberals. So it's hard it doesn't matter how honest and open and truthful your words are if the person you're communicating with isn't willing to hear you. And it's hard to hear truth from people we don't trust. But we open one another's minds by first opening their hearts. And how do we open their hearts? Well, that's why I read that little piece by Robert Tanner. If you're not willing to show your vulnerability, if you're not willing to admit where you made mistakes, then how are people going to trust that you're willing to forgive their mistakes? So I'm just going to repeat this prayer because I really believe that if we can embody it, we can embody the honesty that Applejack shows. May I know the beauty that can be full confession unfiltered. one that shatters the shame, where I share my sin openly with all siblings. Grant a love that heals those I harm. Free my heart of hatred denial. Call my being to openness, covenant, and accountability. And maybe we can be a little bit more like Applejack. Except maybe without the country accent. Maybe so. And now we'll join together in singing 118, This Little Light of Mine. Where we share our joys and sorrows. Spirit of life and love, be with us today as we celebrate with one another and comfort one another. Let's take a moment to reflect on those joys and sorrows that are held within our hearts instead of being expressed. So now if you'll join me in reading out the chalice extinguishing words. Would you like to extinguish? Thank you. We extinguish our chalice flame, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of the community, or the fire of commitment. These we are in our hearts, in our hands, until we are together again. And I'd like to close today's service with words from John Murray that I'm amending slightly. Go out into the highways and byways. You may possess but a small light, but uncover it, let it shine, and share it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and the minds of people you meet. As Rumi said, even though you light one candle with another, the light is not diminished. Amen, shalom, salam, blessed be. Please join me in listening to the postlude and then stay for our not even coffee hour. I have coffee hour, but it's not, it's better.